All right, intrepid travelers, if you're dreaming about Thailand or already planning your adventure here, I want to share something that will completely change the way you experience this country. I mean, completely. Like, once you've read these, you can't unread them. And what I'm talking about is a set of novels of crime thrillers by a guy named John Burdett. And I highly recommend diving into these crime thrillers. But let me give you a kind of a full disclosure. These are adult themes, and they're not these books aren't for everybody. So having said that, these books aren't your typical beach read travel books, let me tell you. These stories pull you deep into the undercurrent of Thailand, a side most tourists will never see. The complexity, the contradictions, the spiritual meets up with the street level reality. What makes Burdett's writing so powerful is how accurate it is. And from a guy that's lived here for 8 years and walked all around Bangkok, it is super accurate. The culture, the details, the mindset, the way things actually work here, it's all woven into the story in a way that feels incredibly real, but is a crime thriller. It's totally fiction. Now, even though it is fiction, I can tell you from personal experience, I'll be walking through parts of Bangkok down like a quiet soi. A soi is like a dark alley where people live, but it's late at night for me sometimes because I don't walk in the heat too much. I go past certain street vendors or into a thriving walking street. Walking street is where they've closed off traffic. There's no traffic, and you can walk down there and see all the shops. And I get this strange feeling like I've been here before. But then it hits me. I haven't really been there in real life, but I have been there through one of John's books, and that's the magic of what he does. His main character, Sonchai Jiplachip, gives you a lens into Thailand that most travelers will never get to access, not at all. You see, John, he blends Buddhism and crime. There's not a lot of crime here, though, in Thailand, but where there is crime, it's kind of really gangsterish, right? Philosophy, culture, all into stories that stay with you long after you finish the book. So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through each of his Thailand-based novels, starting with Bangkok 8, and give you a quick review of each one so you can decide which ones to bring along on your own journey here into the kingdom. Pack light, read them first back where you are at home, and then don't bring them at all. But once you read these, Thailand won't just be a destination for you anymore. It becomes something you start to almost understand until you get here. Let's start with the one that pulls you in right away, and that book is Bangkok 8. This is the book that introduces you to one of the most fascinating characters you'll ever meet in crime fiction. I don't think I can think of anything else like it. Sonchai Jiplachip. He is a Royal Thai police detective who is also a deeply devout Buddhism. And that combination makes this story so unique. The book opens with the murder of a U.S. Marine found dead in a locked car, along with a suitcase full of cobras. Yeah, the snakes, cobras. Oh, yeah, right from the start, you know you're not in Kansas anymore, or even Hampton anymore, right? Right, Detective Oleski? Anyway, the book really hooks you, so it just isn't about the mystery. It's the way Burdett uses Sonchai to interpret everything happening around him. You're not just seeing Bangkok, you're understanding it through a completely different worldview. There's karma, there's reincarnation, there's the idea that justice isn't always what it looks like in the West. And there's Bangkok itself, not the version you see from a rooftop bar, where I like to go, but the real city, the alleyways, the sois, the tension between modern life and the ancient belief systems, the blurred lines between right and wrong. What I love about this book is how it forces you to let go a lot of your Western mindset, and that coming to Thailand is a good thing, and step into something much more nuanced. If you're planning a trip to Thailand, this book will change how you see everything, from the police to the people to the culture itself. Bangkok 8 isn't just a thriller. It's the first real glimpse into behind the curtain of one of the very interesting but most forbidden part of Thailand. All right, now we get to Bangkok haunts. And this is where the series takes a darker, almost supernatural turn. And we're back with Sonchai, but this time the story leans heavily into something that's deeply rooted in Thai culture, and that is the spirit world, believe it or not. And he brings it together like it just meshes so well. The case begins with a brutal murder of a woman, and what unfolds is not just a crime investigation, but something that feels, well, very haunted, like the book says. And here's the key. In Thailand, the idea of ghosts and spirits and unfinished business from past lives, this isn't fringe thinking. Believe it or not, it is a part of everyday life. I can tell you firsthand, this is a much bigger thing than any of you might realize until you actually get here and talk to some of the people about this particular topic. And even then, without the right guide, you might even not even notice it, someone to point out what they're talking about. But Burdett, he captures it perfectly. As Sonchai digs deeper into the case, you start to question what is real and what isn't. There's a strong sense that the victim herself might be reaching out through the cosmos, I guess, because she's been murdered, right? So she has to reach out to the living. And she's influencing events, guiding the story from beyond. And instead of dismissing it, Sonchai leans into it, right? That makes this book so... makes it different from Western crime thrillers. The line between the physical world and the spiritual world gets very blurred. And no one is rushing to separate them and tell you what's going on in fact. But you have to figure it out. It unravels itself. At the same time, you still get everything you expect. You get corruption, you get power struggles, you get the underbelly of Bangkok. And now, layered in with this eerie psychological tension that stays with you is a powerful story that will remain with you while you now travel in Thailand. And you'll think, oh yeah, I got it. For travelers, this book gives you insight into something you'll absolutely feel when you're here. Whether it's the spirit houses, and you have to notice them outside every building, the spirit houses, the offerings on the street, the ribbons wrapped around the po trees, or maybe there's dresses hanging out for the spirit world. Offerings, or the quiet respect people have when they walk by some of these things that they just can't explain. Bangkok Haunts isn't a crime story. It's an introduction to an unseen side of Thailand. Once you start noticing it, though, you can never unsee it. The next book up is Bangkok Turquoise, and this one shifts gear in a really interesting way. Now, the story expands beyond the streets of Bangkok and into a broader world of international crime. The case centers around a missing shipment of priceless jewels, Saudi blue diamonds, and if you know anything about Thai history and the history between Thailand and the Saudi royal family, you recognize this is inspired by a real-life scandal that rocked the country years ago. I never asked John personally if that was the case, but it has to be if you read it. And one of the things Burdett does so well is he takes real events and he weaves them into fiction in a way that feels incredibly authentic. As Sonchai investigates, you'll start to see how deeply interconnected everything is here in Thailand. The police, the military, the politicians, and powerful international players all around Asia. This isn't just a local crime anymore. This one is global. But even with the bigger stage, the heart of the story is still very Thai, right? There's still that constant tension between duty and karma, between what should be done and what will be done. And you also get a deeper look in how the hierarchy works in Thailand. The idea of face, which is super important, saving face, influence, and invisible lines that people rarely cross, unless they're willing to pay the price. And if you do pay the price, you have to pay a steep price. I can tell you the idea of saving face here is a very real thing. For travelers, this book gives you a clearer understanding of something you'll feel here, even if you can't always explain it. That's that there is there are layers here. Gosh, that's hard to say. There are layers here to how things operate. And not everyone and not everything is visible on the surface. Bangkok Turquoise takes the series from the streets of Bangkok and plugs it into the global stage while keeping its roots firmly in Thai culture. Now we move into Vulture Peak, the book Vulture Peak. And this one, for me, is definitely the most intense and the most philosophical of the entire series. By the way, this one's certainly not for kids, and none of the books are suitable for minors, actually. Once again, Sunchai is pulled into a case that goes far beyond simple investigation. None of them are. This time, the story revolves around a series of brutal murders and a shadowy figure who might be responsible, but might not, or someone operating at a level that feels almost untouchable. But what really sets the book apart is, again, a deeper dive into Buddhism. It's not just on the surface level. Burdett takes you into concepts like enlightenment, detachment, the nature of suffering, and what it really means to escape the cycle of desire. He puts Sunchai right in the middle of that tension. Because on one hand, Sunchai is trying to solve a violent, very human crime, and on the other, he's being pulled towards something higher, almost like he's being asked to let go of the very things that define him as a detective. There's a real conflict within him. There's even a sense that throughout the book, he may be evolving or even unraveling. It depends on how you look at it. For the readers and travelers, this is where you start to understand something deeper about Thailand, that Buddhism here isn't just a decoration, like maybe in the West we think it is. It's not just temples and rituals. It's a lens through which people interpret reality itself. And Vulture Peak challenges you on a deeper level. It makes you think. And for me, I can't look up at the hills of Hong Kong, which I love. I can't look up the hills of Hong Kong or Phuket the same way after reading this book. It might even change the way you see not just Thailand, but life in general. Maybe. The next book takes place in a place I really want to visit. It's on my bucket list and I haven't been there. The name of the book is The Godfather of Kathmandu. And there's a couple reasons that I want to go to Kathmandu, and this is a big one. I also have a friend from Kathmandu, but I definitely want to visit Kathmandu, Nepal. And this one in the series, it also takes a it goes in a different direction. Sunchai is pulled out of Bangkok almost entirely and into Nepal, into Kathmandu, a place with its own deep spiritual roots, but a very different energy. The case begins with a murder of an American woman, and what follows is a journey into something you don't usually see in crime thrillers, a world of identity, illusion, and consciousness. There's a strong theme here around what is real and what isn't real. And you get into things like body transfer, altered states, and even the idea that self might not be as fixed as we think it is. Again, instead of dismissing these ideas, the story leans into them. But what I really like about this book is how it contrasts Thailand with another culture in the Asian region. You start to see that while Thailand has its own unique balance of Buddhism, modern life, street level reality, places like Nepal bring a different kind of mysticism, a different place, almost a different depth. And Sunchai, being pulled out of his element of Bangkok, gives you a fresh perspective on who he really is. For listeners and travelers, this book expands your view beyond Thailand and into all of Southeast Asia and Asia as a greater region, as layers upon layers of culture, of many years of culture and belief and worldview. Maybe the reason I love this book so much is that the climax takes place right across the river from my condo. When I look out of my window in my condo, I see some of the boats lined up and on the Chao Phraya River in Bangkok, and that's where the climax of this book takes place. And I look at it and I think about this book almost every day. Just when you think the journey is over, Sunchai comes roaring back in the book, The Bangkok Asset. Now, John's book, The Bangkok Asset, feels a little more modern than the other ones, a little more global, but still deeply rooted in Thailand. This time, the story centers around a missing woman and a case that pulls Sunchai into one of the darkest and most complex issues of the region. Spoiler alert here, he finally finds out who his father is, which is kind of weird if you've read the whole series. But what makes this book stand out is how it connects Thailand to the rest of the world. You're not just dealing with the local crime anymore, although it's been international crime in the last 3 books. You're looking at international networks, and what's really cool about this, you're looking at the money flows internationally and the influences that stretch across borders. And again, Burdett doesn't simplify it. No, there's no easy villains here, no clean answers, just layers of motivation, survival, power, and consequences. At the same time, you'll get that core tension that defines the entire series. Sunchai, the Buddhist, trying to navigate the world that consistently challenges his beliefs. Trying to do good in a system where good isn't always clearly defined. For travelers, this book gives you something important. It reminds you that while Thailand is beautiful, and it's also very welcoming. Yes, it is incredibly welcoming and full of incredible experiences. It's also a real country with real challenges, just like anywhere else in the world. Now, Bangkok Asset, the book, brings this series to a full circle. It's actually more mature than the other ones, I think, more reflective, and in many ways more grounded in the reality of today's Thailand. So there you have it, a journey through the world of Detective Sunchai Jiplachip and the Thailand of John Burdett. Now, I wanted to give you this podcast episode because I'm going to interview John in a few weeks, and I want to give you a chance to maybe read 1 or 2 of his books before you actually hear the interview. So worth it, right? This guy is amazing. If you're planning a trip here to Thailand, though, or even just dreaming about one, I can't recommend these books enough to give you that kind of flavor, that kind of intrigue that gets you going, gets juices going, and makes you want to come to Thailand. They'll give you something most travelers never get. I've said this like 4 times already. A deeper lens into the culture, the mindset, and the layers of Thailand that exist just beneath the surface. And here's the exciting part. I want to give you guys a chance, if you're a fan of John Burdett, I want to give you guys a chance to ask him a question on my podcast. Now, the way we're gonna do it is I have to edit it first. But if you do have a question for John, email it to me, and I'll give you the email in a minute. But if your question is good enough, and we'll ask John, and if it makes the podcast, great, I'll let you know. So email me any questions for John Burdett, the author of the series, the Bangkok 8 series. I also want to let you know that my new book, so excited about this, my new book, Getting Lost in the Magic of Thailand, Island Hopping Down the Siam Spice Route, will be available for pre-order probably mid next month, which is May if you're listening in the future. If you want the link as soon as it goes live, just send me an email again at support@thailandadventurenetwork.com. Again, support@thailandadventurenetwork.com, and put book in the subject line, and I'll make sure you get early access to the pre-order pricing. And if you're thinking about planning your own trip to Thailand, whether it's a curated land journey, a private yacht charter, I started out in that direction, or following along the Siam spice route and island hopping, send me an email there too, same address, support@thailandadventurenetwork.com. And we can set up a free Zoom call to map it all out together. Remember, any podcast insider, podcast listener, the Zoom calls to get you going are entirely free of charge, right? And also I want to say thank you to all the podcast insiders that have reached out to me and asked me questions. I love it. And when you come here, I'm seeing probably at least once of you every week. It's fantastic to meet all of you. So thank you so much for reaching out. I really appreciate this community so much. So until I see you, until then, travel far, connect deeply, and live fully.